Welcome to the Dive Heart First podcast, where we clear out what has been troubling in the mind so that we can dive into the intelligence of the heart. I'm your host, Jenn Walker, and today we're going to talk about addiction. Now, with addiction, I am not an expert in this field, and it's not my specialty, and I have learned a lot through my RRT, Rapid Resolution Therapy, training about addiction and understanding the brain and behavior around it. So much so that I think the perspective that I've learned is very valuable and useful, and it might be valuable and useful for someone listening today. So I thought I would share it. So with addiction, we know about, drugs and alcohol and addiction in that way. And we can kind of see like how that could be very detrimental to somebody's life, their career, and their relationships. And I think that there are so many common addictions out there that we don't often talk about, and a lot of people are being afflicted by them and don't know what to do about them. And these could be addictions to one's phone, social media, or even food. So why I wanted to talk about addiction is it affects most of us, and there's a big misunderstanding with it and stigma. And things that survive only survive in shame and silence to perpetuate it and to keep it going forward. So the more we can destigmatize things and start to talk about things and share and connect and see and empathize and have compassion with one another, the more we can connect and really heal. Heal as a whole, heal the individual, heal as a community, heal as a world, and move forward. So that is my intention with this podcast episode, and where I look at addiction in the ways that I've been taught it to and how it relates to the brain and behavior is really to look at the addiction as not the problem. So whatever the addiction is, it is the solution. And if anything, the addiction lies in addiction to relief. So relief from usually very uncomfortable sensations, emotions, or thoughts in the mind and the body. So something big comes up, then there's an impulse to do something to change the emotional state, to numb the thought or distract the thought or take it elsewhere. And so when we really understand that perspective, we stop vilifying the addiction as the bad thing. And sure, it can lead to a lot of negative impacts. But when we start looking at the alcohol, the drugs, the phone, the food as the solution, and we really get to know that the problem is just interested in relief, then we can start looking at maybe something that would be more beneficial and have a positive impact for us in terms of relief. I have an own personal experience with this with alcohol. So I wouldn't say I was addicted to alcohol, but then looking back, I did drink a lot of alcohol. So about 10 years ago, I was living in Toronto and I was working, a 9 to 5 sales job. And every night I would come home, and as I was starting to cook food, I usually pour a glass of wine. And as I'm cooking, I'm usually drinking a glass of wine. It might have stopped there, or maybe I'm having another glass of wine with dinner. And it was just like a habit. I also had a very busy social life. So Friday, Saturday night looked like a lot of alcohol, like a few drinks with friends, going out to bars and pubs and parties and things like that. So much so that right before I left for this 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, I went to a storefront where you could make your own wine, and I have 30 bottles of wine made for me because that's how much I used to drink it. And I went away to this 10-day Vipassana sit. And if you're unfamiliar with this, it's silent meditation, and you're meditating for about 10 hours a day. And it is the practice of non attachment to aversion and non attachment to craving. I have done two sits now, 10-day sits, and I've gotten something completely different out of both of them. But this first sit, I really got in with that non attachment to aversion. First off, I was sitting on the ground for 10 plus hours meditating and left with my thoughts. So there is a lot of non attachment to aversion to practice in that time. And I just noticed, like aches and pains for sitting all day, and just witnessing it, observing it, not changing it, just being with it, allowing it. Also, the thoughts, I was amazed. Things from years and years ago, or even a week ago, a month ago, a couple years ago, were coming up. And this was not my first time practicing meditation. I got into meditation practice actually first through transcendental meditation. And I learned transcendental meditation when I was living in London, England, long, long before that. And I had been practicing that. And what I loved about transcendental meditation is how they taught about the mind and what you're experiencing during meditation. And a metaphor that always stuck with me is, when you start to meditate, the mind is very busy, like thoughts everywhere, and you're not doing it wrong. It's just like when you settle and you silence, it's almost like you're kicking up the silt at the bottom of a river that had settled down and was kind of just dormant and laying there. As you meditate, it kicks it up to clear it out. So I loved that metaphor. And I just noticed with this Vipassana sit and, 10 hours a day, you get a lot of time to kick up the silt. So I just noticed things that had still been bothering me, but was outside of my awareness being kicked up. And I got to practice that non-attachment to that aversion, to that uncomfortable sensation. So fast forward, I get out of the 10-day meditation retreat and I'm on fire. I like it was like I took the pill from Limitless. Like I was just so bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I lost about 10 pounds. I was light in my body, light in my mind. Just things were firing on all cylinders. And I remember a really interesting byproduct of that 10-day Vipassana sit is I had zero appetite for alcohol when I got back. And this is 10 plus years ago that I did this first sit, and I still don't have an appetite for alcohol. And it's fascinating. Like, I just noticed I had these 30 bottles of wine that I had just made for myself sitting there that I eventually just gave away to other people because I just didn't want it. There was nothing in me that was interested in drinking it anymore. I also noticed that when I went out to meet up with friends, that I wasn't even drinking out at bars and pubs and parties. And it was not my intention. I was actually not interested in changing anything about my drinking. But it was just this like little happy byproduct. And when I zoomed out and I looked at like, what do I think is happening here? I think what happened was I was becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. So usually when I would cook with wine and eat, it was because I was tired. It was after a long day and I was like uncomfortable and like winding down or tired or had been stressed. So I was easing that discomfort through the wine. And then socially, I run excited. I run like anxious. It's one of the same. And I noticed that nothing changed with that. I still run excited, anxious, like social anxiety-ish. But instead of changing it by having alcohol and numbing that energy, I was just comfortable with the uncomfortable, because what I really learned with Vipassana is whatever arises passes away in the form of sensations. So aversions, there's nothing actually you need to do. Uncomfortable sensations, there's actually nothing you need to do. Uncomfortable sensations will pass. And so with Vipassana, that practice and that rewiring of my mind within those 10 days, my mind really understood, oh, I'm not going to die here if I'm uncomfortable. And just be uncomfortable as long as you're uncomfortable, because that will shift and then all of a sudden you're comfortable. And I don't need something like alcohol. So that's my little reflection of my happy byproduct accident of practicing 10-day Vipassana meditation. But it really goes to show what might be the underlying addiction there. And the underlying addiction to most addictions is relief. And when we can understand that, we have a couple options: is just leave it, become comfortable with uncomfortable, be with it, and or sitting with yourself and just creating a little roadblock where you used to have like a solution. Okay, I feel this way, I'll do this and I'll relieve it. Instead, if you would like to shift that pattern, you just put up a little roadblock with a question. And the question can be, what do I actually need in this moment? What do I actually need in this moment? And sometimes it will still be like, yeah, I'm going to have that beer, or I'm going to eat the food, or I'm going to scroll on social media. And a lot of time from my experience, when I create that roadblock with myself, say I'm like hangry for a cookie, I just stop. And what do I actually need? Usually it leads us to connection to ourselves, connections to others, or connection with the universe or nature. And so when I ask that question, a lot of times my mind comes back with an answer of call someone, go on a walk with someone, cuddle Dean, laugh, cry, dance, play music, cook a meal of food, rest. So a lot of different things will come up. And that way it starts to repatterning. So you either don't need relief and you can just leave it and the sensations will eventually pass, and you just regulate like, oh, I can have really wildly uncomfortable sensations in my body and not do anything, and it goes away and I'll be fine. Or you can repattern a different habit with that uncomfortable sensation by just asking yourself, what do I actually need in this moment? And following that. It might look like a walk outside or some exercise. Usually will show you something else that might be even more valuable and beneficial to you in that moment. As always, take what you take from this podcast, leave what you leave. If you are in the thick of an addiction towards drugs or alcohol now, go get support. You know, if this is a call to action, this stuff only survives in shame and silence. There's so much out there. Go and contact somebody so that you can get relief and go into recovery, and do the detox needed there. If it's speaking to you on something like that we don't often talk about, like food addiction or phone addiction, play with this roadblock. What do I actually need? If you notice the first thing you do is check your phone every morning and you no longer like to do that, play with this moment of like, what do I actually need in this moment? And do that. So that's it from me today. Thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me. I love you, and go out and have an absolutely tremendous day.